how to build unique apps in the age of AI. Now, Ray, you've been building applications for many more ages than I am. How do you want to start with this? I didn't mean to call you old, but I wanted to call you wise, you know?
I appreciate you hit both. And yeah, there's such new stuff that you can build now, and I think that we might just sort of start with like what are you seeing, especially around Despia, right? Around the kinds of applications that people are building today that are not like what you've seen either in your previous agency work or just on your phone over the course of the last several years. Like it's because so much is changing so fast. Like, so what are you seeing today first?
I think it's impressive how useful AI consumer apps are now. I remember back then, like in 2023, I was building some AI consumer apps and was like flipping them on Flippa and reselling them on like a Flippa and acquire.com and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Back then, we were just like doing AI grammar assistant. And those apps were like selling for like 50,000, 60,000 on Flippa, like with pre-revenue sometimes. Like it was wild. Back then it was the Wild West. If you had any app, like it could be terribly executed as long as it was AI. There was always some of the investors on Flippa who want to buy it pre-revenue because it was hot. Now the
Mhm.
stakes are higher. Now people are actually building useful applications using AI for AI. So they're using AI, they're building with AI, and then they're building for AI, right? For
Mhm.
consumer applications. And I
Right.
found that like at least 3 out of 4 applications are like primarily like AI to
Mhm.
reorganize my closet, or AI to track my habits, or
Mhm.
AI to like the weirdest application. Like I don't know if you see those. I always see those ads like Tai Chi walking. This the new health trend. Like it's like always on YouTube. I don't know if you see those. It's like those AI ads with those AI voices. There was one of the people that were like buying those Tai Chi walking ads. He was building an app with Despia for Tai Chi walking. I was like, I'm curious what it is. I just looked into it. Probably not GDPR compliant, but I was like, interesting. So those apps exist as well, but I found that most of those apps are like some sort of AI
Yep.
that are actually useful. Like back then, we were like doing like AI text, like it was all about text. Now it's beyond text. I think this is what you kind of like can take away from it, right? Because back then, all the AI tools have been text based, enhancing your text, making your text better, generating images. Now it goes a little bit deeper into the real world.
I think that's a really key point. I think there are, a few things that are all built into that, right? So one is the idea of being multimodal and, how you can, take data that was previously not available to you through AI, because, couldn't really deal with images or video, and now it really can. I think people sleep on like how much AI can do in terms of comprehending video. Like
Oh yeah.
Gemini has got a wonderful service for that. And being able to use that context to figure out, okay, what's really going on here. Not to say that's completely free or cheap, but it is, but it's available to us, and it's only getting better. The a second aspect is the value of collecting data, right? You probably like Limitless was around, right? There was the Humane app, right? That was sort of this little thing you could wear, right? The AI
Wasn't it just
wearables.
like using APNs to send you push notifications?
Well, some of those were, but I think that but what that
Oh
kind
no,
of
no,
gets
no,
to.
that was not the humane pin. That was the other thing called friend. It was like this thing you put around your neck, and it was like
Yep.
just like an AI thing. It just like picked up your speech, sent it to the device, and sent you like a push notification. Or but actually, it can't send it to the device. It has to send it first to the server. Otherwise, it can't send a push notification.
Well, and well, you can actually have push notification runs entirely locally, but the
Right, right, but you wouldn't be able like the pin thing that they have. Like if the phone is fully in the background, you can't like just like execute a foreground. You would then have to have the thing call a server to then call a silent push to the device to pick it up. But by that time, you already mentioned the sentence, so they likely have the device stream the raw data to their server, process it on there, likely send a silent push with the notification, so you have like a little like spy always with you.
Yep. And like what I think that points to is like the value of collecting data. So like if one trend is about molds, the second trend is about like if you have more data, AI can put that to work for you, right? And that means there's a big market for apps that can collect that data. And I think the thing you originally saw, it would collect the data and keep the data. And what's even more valuable is if it collects the data and then shares it with the other things that are sort of about you, you know? And so like
That's kind
the
of like that's kind of like where like MCPs and tools kind of like get relevant, because you can take this piece of data and you can share it with this piece and then get another piece, and you can kind of like go through steps, right? Like
well,
back
actually,
then, you would have
yeah.
to build interface for it. You would have to have the AI generate the script and then generate the photos and then generate the videos. And you would have to build interfaces to have people put this together, right? Like I'm thinking of, oh, what was his name? The one with Animatics AI. He was using Wisp and Webflow and Xano from State Change. What was his name
I'm sorry,
again?
which one are you talking about?
The one who did Xano and Wisp and Webflow to build Animatics AI, or what was it called?
Oh yeah. Well, Animax is out there. It's a successful business now that's doing, you know, AI video generation.
Yes, yes.
And you're right. Like what they're doing is composing the stuff together.
You you
I
had
don't
to
know
kind
that.
of like build an interface for it. Now
Yep.
you can have like all of your tools, and I think he probably with your help already has it. But now you can take all of his API endpoints in Xano and you can put them in an MCP, and you can like have OpenAI directly work with it. So it can skip this, or it can go from this step. If this step fails, it can go back and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. So you're seeing lots of composability, and that's
Yeah.
sort of, so the second thing is about collecting more data. The third is going to be about having more composable applications. And this is there's a bit of like, well, APIs always had this, and that's true to some extent. But the idea is like there's actually something that makes documentation much more valuable, because you can the best way to think about MCP is equal to API plus documentation. And when you don't have the documentation, AI doesn't really know how to use it. But when the AI does know how to use it, boy, there's a lot more that it can do with it,
It's a little
and
bit
that
like
allows.
GraphQL.
Well, yeah, I mean, GraphQL is like that's a standard for getting at a lot of data.
Obviously
That's,
not like it's just for getting GraphQL is just for querying basic data, but like the way how it is self-documenting is kind of like GraphQL, right? Because like with GraphQL you can explore what data is available before calling it, right? Like in AI you can't explore. I mean, obviously you have the open API spec, but besides that, like you can't really call it to explore stuff, right?
well, you can call it to explore. Actually, that's a really good use of AI. I saw a
Yeah.
comment about how like if you have an API out there, you know, that one of the best things you can do to make your APIs consumable by AI is to have it come back with verbose error messages. Because, you know, if the AI can find out what it did wrong or get some hints in that regard, it can go make another try. Whereas you just say, you know, 400 bad payload, like to do with that. But if you say
Apple
400
is
bad payload.
actually good at that. Apple is good
Hmm?
at Apple App Store API, App Store Connect API is really good at telling you what you're doing wrong. Like when you call it, the only thing it's terrible at is they did some changes now. App developers can essentially do the same thing as app managers. So now we don't know
Mhm.
anymore if an API key uploaded is an app manager or a developer, but it makes a big difference in Xcode. So
Mhm.
I wish they would be a little bit more precise on that. But yeah, otherwise, Apple is really good at telling you what you're doing wrong with their
Yeah.
APIs as well.
There's another state changer who's works in finance, who's you know, whose clients come in with like these big complicated documents, and like first he had an app that like, okay, here's a big complicated document, now all you need to do is retype 10% of it into my interface so that I can use my service. And now what they can do is because of like this sort of MCP-ish approach, just go dump in your document, and I'll go check out your document and rip out the pieces that are necessary to go fill in what needs to be, you know, the inputs that are necessary to make these things work. And like it changes the user, right, from being the person to just being the AI. And that has been a really neat shift in model, because now for him, it's like, oh, wait, how do I get people to use this? Because it takes so much work for them to get to it, but then it's really valuable. But now it's like, oh no, I just dump in my document, I get the magic at the other end. I had a friend who used to call that $1,000,000 for farting. And I thought that was it's just like if you can make it super low effort and super high value, there's so much to it. And the ability to like say you don't have to use our software, the AI uses the software for you, and that is like a big change in modality I've seen, particularly on the like the business to business front. And then as a result, nobody wants to use your app. They don't want to actually go to your website or open up your mobile app or what have you, except in very specific circumstances. So that means there's like this is where the MCP apps standard that just was finalized a week ago, 2 weeks ago, becomes really useful, because now it's, instead of saying you have to go to my app afterwards, my app comes to you where you work. You
Yeah.
dump in your document, the Claude or ChatGPT or whatever is sort of working to process your stuff. By working with that app, like you say, that's sort of how these things connect, and then it's able to present to you, all right, here's what you can do next, not just in form of a wall of text, but in the form of a widget, right? It says, here's what you do now. And now, instead of you have your big app and you're trying to get AI to be inside it, you have your app that's inside the AI. And from a user experience point of view, that can be really superior, because now you're just giving them the best 5% of your app, from a UX point of view, and they don't have to be using the other 95%. And they can always go back to your app if they want to have more
Yeah.
context. Like that's what I
That
find to be really cool about like how that user experience can go. And then the
also what I think is very important, back then it was very tough to, like, if you have a sophisticated software and you have lots of buttons and lots of settings, it's been an absolute pain to try to condense this into a mobile responsive version. Like I think it's already my third attempt and to try to create a halfway decent looking, user friendly interface that looks nice in a mobile app for Despia. Like, it's impossible to get all the settings in that small of a screen. Like, it's impossible. You can't do it, right? But now I'm building an MCP. So the idea is that the Despia mobile app, you'll just talk to an AI in there, and the AI will tell you all the settings that are available, and you can just say, hey, make the splash screen pink, and then it does a splash screen and turns it to be pink. That way you don't have to like have a color picker and have to build a color picker. It's just going to look like ChatGPT. And it'll just do all the settings for you. You can say, hey, do a new deployment. And then you have like a little card. I can reuse that component for the deployment. And then it just shows the progress. I can build a little interface into it. And I'm not going to pay for any AI credits. I'm just going to have people use the AIS web authentication session to go to Claude to get their, their access token. We'll encrypt this and then we'll consume it, their token. So we don't have to pay for AI and you have to pay us 10 times whatever it costs. You just use your credits or your Claude subscription directly yourself. That's the goal. And that way I don't have to build all the interface, and that way I don't have to like wait till I'm at usage tier 5 to actually be confident in scaling this. Because like OpenAI doesn't sadly have an option where you can just pay them to get access to high usage. You have to like use it, and it's hard to use it because it's like actually quite hard to use all the stuff. I don't know if you have that issue.
Well, if you get these things to a little more scale, the other option you have is to use what's called well, you can use somebody else's enterprise tier, right? This is what like OpenRouter really does, right? OpenRouter, Clarify, what they're really in the business of doing is being the mediator.
They're on
right?
the enterprise plan, and then like they just like users just chip in.
And they rent it out a little more fractionally. I think that's where these other tools become a lot more interesting. Is because OpenAI is all concerned about like how to be handling the variable usage, right, from these customers, but because these other resellers are standing in front of it, right, they're basically wholesaling. They're buying it wholesale and then retailing it out. There's an advantage to that, and I think largely it's pretty similar pricing as well. So like that'd be the way I would probably look to handle it in the medium term, and then potentially being able to have a relationship with OpenAI, but OpenAI doesn't really want to have 1,000 enterprise level relationships because that actually gets very expensive to manage. So they sort of have this divide between the retail and then they have big enterprise. And for companies that are kind of in the middle, that's where the resellers become interesting.
But I also think it's very interesting that like ChatGPT and
Mhm.
Claude and most other models, they all have now OAuth. So they all have like you can tap into native OAuth SDKs, and you can open and you can tap into OAuth flows. So you don't have like login with Google, you have login with your AI model, bring your context, bring your tokens, bring your plan, right? Like why do we have to pay for tokens and then charge them 3 times or 4 times as much if they can just like log in with Claude, right? I think that's going to be very interesting, because I'd prefer to cut one another liability.
I think login with Claude is a super, super interesting idea in terms of being able to bring your APIs with you, or bring your
Xcode is
subscription with
doing
you.
it.
Oh, really?
Yes, if you go to Xcode, you
Hmm.
can. They have an OAuth flow for Anthropic, and they have a public OAuth API, and we already added support for that to Despia. So when I built the Despia mobile app in Despia, we can have login with Claude, so you can bring your tokens into it.
That's fascinating. I didn't even know about login with Claude. Now,
Yeah, it's a whole thing. They have a whole thing for that. Yeah. Revenue Cat is doing the same thing now. Revenue Cat, I'm still emailing them because you have to manually email them and they take forever to reply to you, even if you are like a partner of them. But they also have login with Revenue Cat now. So all of those companies are now providing OAuth flows. So like you can have a mobile app and they can, or a web app, and you can just like one click OAuth into Revenue Cat, get people's access token, create subscriptions, create products on their behalf. And they built this for all those lovable no-code tools, because then they can turn their APIs into an MCP being consumed by that model without having to copy paste keys and all that kind of stuff.
that's super cool, dude. Appreciate
Yes,
that.
you're welcome.
There's definitely something to that. There's also something there's part of the MCP standard, where the tool, the MCP servers, can actually just go back to their host chat to ask questions and just
Very
use those
cool.
tokens directly, as
That's
opposed
probably
to
going to be very expensive if you do it in Lovable, but
well, right, that's all about like how you're paying for the tokens. But I think you make a really good point, like who's paying for that, who's paying that power bill is going to matter in the near future. Certainly something I try to do is like cut my costs, right? So that I'm not sitting on as much.
I do prefer, like with Despia, if we're going to add some sort of generative AI into it, which I am thinking, like if we will have a mobile responsive version, we're not going to have a mobile app. Like I'm not trying to build like Webflow in a mobile view. Like that's not the goal, right? Like there are too many settings for it to be mobile responsive. It should be a chat app where you can just have an AI do major settings for you, or we narrow down what you can do. But if it's going to be into the AI direction, I'm just going to have people log in with ChatGPT, log in with Claude, and use their existing subscription. That way, I don't have to run out of credits, and then I can't upgrade with OpenAI because I'm not on tier 2 or 3 or whatever tiers they have. Because they make it surprisingly hard. I wish I could just like put $1,000 on the account, but I can only put like I think like 300 at a time, and then you have to wait till you're already in the negative, and then you can put another 300, and then you have to do this like 3 times to go up to 400, and then make it very hard. I don't want my service to be down. The best way is people already have some sort of ChatGPT account, some sort of Claude account. They can
Yeah,
just
sure.
bring their own account and get unlimited usage. Why would I want to double charge for that? They already paid for Despia, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's gonna be something that's coming too. It's like how do you bring your
I
own
just
power
want to
that
be
is
like WeWeb. I just want to charge for the editor.
okay. Well, right, and then the otherwise, well, actually no, but we have charges for the hosting. That's a big thing that
Eh,
WeWeb does.
No, but I know, but back then you always said like WeWeb is technically charging for the editor.
Well, right, because the
And
hosting was so cheap,
how? Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
And the question is like, where do your expenses really come from? And in the world of it, I think that gets like another thing of like how AI apps are different, right? Like what's new is like the AI apps today have marginal costs in a way that the old ones just did not.
Then no code apps. Yeah.
and the or really any app, no code, pro code, whatever, right? I think the
Yeah.
in general, the story of apps written over the course of the last 15 years has been heavy on networking and maybe storage, right? But like the cost of trivial, it was all fairly deterministic stuff. And now that it's just much more mathy, well, and they're charging, and like the mechanism for charging is tokens, and
I
tokens are
hope
basically because compute and memory.
one day we'll have something like Bunny CDN, because Bunny CDN disrupted the whole hosting because they were like the cheapest one and nobody has ever been able to beat their price. I hope we'll have one time something like this for AI where they're just so cheap you can just like you can host like everything and never delete it.
I think it is worth asking how what I'm trying to say here. It's probably just worth asking how uh, some of these other models can help as well. Like you and I have been talking about Claude, we've been talking about ChatGPT, and some expectation that like the reason why things are expensive is because you get this whole stream of tokens, and tokens cost a
Yeah.
lot. Like Opus is not cheap. ChatGPT 5 or GPT 5.2 or Codex 5.3. These are
One thing that I found out is Lovable made this big announcement. I don't know if you ever noticed this in technology. They said now Lovable is 71% better, but they didn't provide any case studies, any benchmarks, nothing. It's 71% better. Then they make another update and it's 21% better. I'm looking at this, I'm like, those numbers, how does it always end with a one when it's better? It's like, why not two or 1.75 or something? But that's not the point. But after the 71% improvement and after their 21%, so after like a bunch of improvements, like I figured out that now I'm spending like twice as much tokens with it. So they made it, and the results are worse.
Mhm.
Like I found that now the first prompt is really good. Like it's really good getting you off the ground. And make back then Lovable, you needed to have like 5 to 10 prompts to get something from a structural perspective that's halfway acceptable. Now you can go to halfway acceptable in your first prompt. But once you're at your first prompt, it becomes incredibly hard to detail it now. Back then it felt like driving in a Toyota Camry, kind of like you got full control over everything. Now it's kind of like a Tesla, where like if you like try to if you try to do certain stuff, this car is restricting you because of all the technology, right? So like back then it kind of like was like manual. Now you can't really do detailed work. Like if you try to do detailed work, the AI is always trying to like get you off the guardrails, and it's like trying to put you on what it thinks is best. And it kind of like has a self-awareness now that I don't like, because if I have a particular issue, I say you need to move this 1 pixel to the side. It's not doing this now. Now it's making everything pink or something like that, or just like putting everything 1 pixel to the side, or saying, let me just restructure the entire route, which you didn't ask it to do. So now but why they're doing it is because they are obviously aiming for the more beginner market, because it's a bigger market. Like the amount of people who understand what they're doing is a smaller market than the amount of people who don't understand what they're doing. That's why Base 44 is so successful, because they're only focusing on the end of the market, like the bottom of the barrel, like the barrel, the biggest market available, right? And that market doesn't care about being able to detail things in their app, that doesn't care about having specific implementation. They want a database immediately. They want AI built in. They don't care about scalability, and they just want to have 3 prompts and the app is done. That's what Lovable is really good for now. But what I feel where it's falling short is when you need to really have an opinion on how it needs to look or what it needs to do, or you have some novel documentation, you give it to the AI and say, do it. It's now not following it correctly anymore, because now you see like all those reasoning steps. It always thinks, and it thinks the thought broken, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That's just something I figured out. And it happens with a couple of those models because, and I had people actually tell me that because I got some emails because people had issues integrating like certain SDKs from this because now Lovable didn't understand it. And what I found is that now Lovable also disregards the system prompt more, and it just like more just figures, does what it thinks is right, which is something that's interesting because that's removing like the granular control from it. And that is kind of like a movement in the market that I'm seeing, is because all of those AI tools, they're now trying to target people who are truly non-technical, like who don't even know how to use Excel or something. That's not what they're trying to target to. And it's kind of like Shopify, right? Where Shopify back then, it was like a landing page builder. You can do your integration, and they always went easier, 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 easier. And then you have all the people making videos how to become a millionaire using it, because you only have people make videos on how to become a millionaire doing something when it can sound very simple and it can give people the feeling of making progress with it simple, fast, and easy, and no effort required. So it's just like an interesting thing that I'm seeing. And I think that most people who are right now doing advanced stuff in Lovable, at some point, because those tools are trying to always more and more target the bottom of the barrel, will have to go to either Cursor, VS Code, Claude Code, in whatever IDE you want, or we will have a new generation of web-based no-code AI builders that's going to be tailored for professionals. So I think we'll have at some point the Nordcraft of AI, or the WeWeb of AI, or the Webflow of AI, where you can't compare Webflow with Squarespace, but like if you have, and if you care about the details, yet you don't want to like be too deep into it, there is like a upper middle class type of market for, like, it's hard to describe what it is, but I think we'll have something like this for AI running in the browser soon. And I think those will be the ones that likely be adopted by agencies.
Okay. So
What do you
that's
think?
well, yeah, I like your upper
I
middle
do
class
like
idea.
Claude though. I do like Claude Code, and I do like Cursor. I like Cursor. I like paying the idiot tax for using Cursor and not Claude Code because it's just so convenient. I do like Cursor, um, but I
Well,
find that like there's one called, I think it's Ona. I tried it today. It's really good. It's
mhm.
unopinionated. It's unopinionated. It used to be Gitpod, but it's unopinionated. It's like GDPR compliant, security compliant, and it deploys. It runs a virtual machine with localhost, and it just proxies that through their hosted infrastructure. So it's not doing like what Bolt is doing or Lovable is doing, like having like their own client-side Node.js container situation. It's actually running a real virtual machine that runs VS Code on it. And you can integrate XanoScript and Xano in it and use the Xano MCP with their agent, and you can control their agent from your phone. And it gives you the flexibility of being able to use the browser, yet you have the native file system because it runs it like, I think, on a Linux machine or something. And it has a real VS Code cloud environment, and you have localhost and all the testing tools, and it's fully autonomous. I was able to prompt like how I do my benchmark to understand if a tool is really good is I tell it, build an application with Framework 7 icons, Consta UI, and Despia. And I'm not putting any links into it for documentation. If it one-shots it, it's a really darn good tool, and it one-shotted the whole thing, and you had the liquid glass from Consta UI and all that kind of stuff, all built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and looked one-to-one like Apple. It was really good.
So yeah, the
And you can do it
on
from your phone with the
mhm.
power of the native local system.
Right, being able to teleport into your phone, which actually sort of gets
Yeah.
to, I mean, we sort of talk about a bunch of different types of apps, but I think there's another type of app out there, which is the, autonomous app, right?
Yeah.
The one that's able to be running things for you on the regular basis. And like when we talk about like running it from your phone, you're talking about like using Slack or WhatsApp or Telegram or something. And that actually means having a two-way channel. And you were talking about push notifications before, which become really important because now it's like, hey, I want to express my intent, but also want to be able to get back to me every once in a while. And this gets like why OpenClaw, I think, is really popular. It's because now I can say, hey, I want you to go take care of me and like, communicate through messaging, right? And then it's doing things for you. The one of the, like many people are deploying OpenClaw like locally, like they get a Mac Mini or have a second machine or something that is going to be the thing that
Sounds
can.
scary.
Hmm?
Sounds scary. I would probably just
Yeah.
like rent some. I would probably just like rent a Mac Mini on Scalaway.
Well, the reason to have it local, or the reason to have it all, and of course, Scaleway is not cheap for those things either, is that? But the reason you have it is because you want to be always on, and I think that becomes a key thing about we were talking about like
Probably
what
want
kind
to
of apps.
sandbox it though. Like if imagine it can like just like access all your information.
Well, that becomes the question. There are a number of people who don't
Right?
sandbox it because they wanted to have access to all your information because that way you can do more things as your assistant, right? Much as you might hire an assistant, like give them keys to your, passwords and whatever, and like you're gonna hope they're not gonna do anything terrible with it. Then similarly using the AI for that kind of vein. Then there's also the more constrained version of like I'm gonna have some things running up to the cloud and that has access to very specific resources, which gets to your point about sandboxing or certainly guardrails. But one way or the other is the issue of autonomy, right? The idea like I have something that's going to be kind of always on running for me. And you were talking about like Xano before. This is actually something I think would be a big opportunity for Xano. I don't the Xano as a development environment is sort of falling way behind the times, but Xano
Yeah.
as an infrastructure environment is actually quite ahead of the curve because it's they have thought to be instance first in a world where everybody else was going serverless. And by being instance first, you can have something where you can just have resources running all the time. Basically, instead of being a server that's providing services when people ask for them and having all the problems of spikiness, it's a robot that can be working for you all the time. And that model for Xano could be quite effective. And when I look at like who's out there, it's fairly limited. Like what the what the company that seems to be making the most money from OpenClaw is Apple because people are buying the Mac Minis. But also you have
I
like
mean, to be
DigitalOcean.
fair, I'm curious why Code Magic isn't going into the OpenClaw stuff because they have like thousands of Mac Minis lying around.
Well, yeah, but they're also using for their service. But I
Obviously,
certainly take
obviously.
your point about that. But the but the other thing is like just the DigitalOcean is getting into this game too. I think this sort of shows like DigitalOcean, which when they first got into it, they were like the best, easiest, cheapest way to go have your own server running in the cloud. And then that kind of became less popular, but with the rise of serverless, and you could have Netlify or Vercel or whatever became the more popular way of deploying these things, or Amazon Lambda, etc. You can sort of keep on naming lots of different technologies, but like serverless was like the popular thing to do in the previous decade. And really heading into this one, like a lot of what we saw the no-code companies doing was heavily about making use of serverless to control their infrastructure costs so they could scale to zero. But as you have something you want to have be always on, you don't want it to scale to zero. And frankly, and you also, on the other side of it, you don't have a huge scaling problem if it's about the person or about like, solving this particular zone. Like if you are an agent, you want to have more agents, you can have more agents. You build multiples, but like you don't need to have one that scales to infinity. It doesn't scale in the same direction. And as a result of that, I think there's a lot of opportunity to make for these companies to make a lot more money.
I do like Xano. I also do like Xano as a development environment. I know I'm old school when it comes to that. I do like I don't build my APIs with AI. I build them with hand. I take the block, I put it there, I put the next block under it because stuff I'm building is already stuff I have in my mind and I know how it's going to have to work and how it has to translate from Xcode to being able to run a function in Xano, right? And being able to explain that to an AI is just too stressing.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because like I
certainly
have to
use.
explain an AI and it has to understand it, something that I already know. It's just easier to just like you don't have to talk. Like I felt like me talking to AI, it's half of the things are getting lost in translation, the other half are getting lost in hallucination, and then it just doesn't do. And I just spend more time explaining and screaming at the AI what I wanted to do, and it doesn't get me because I already know very specifically what it needs to do. It's not something I can look up on the internet. So I just go in Xano and build it myself. And then like I just use like Xanos Assistant sometimes saying, hey, just add comments to this in Xanos script because I'm too lazy to write them.
Yes, assuming it doesn't blow away half your code in the process. It's just been a problem I have routinely with the Xanos system. But you make a good point. Like when you know what you want, how can you more easily convey what you want? And like, where does AI create comparative advantage? Also, the kinds of things I can do with AI and doing well with AI are very different in, say, January than they were in December, and I'm expecting that to keep on changing in February too, because right at the end of December, right at the end of January, we had 2 new models drop. Right, we have like an Opus 5.6 keeps on getting better, and then the agentic harnesses are getting better as well, like swarms, right? Being able to have teams of agents that are running on your behalf and running them multiple times. There's a lot of juice in that. And the combine that with the model itself getting faster. Like Opus previously was very powerful but kind of slow, and now they have Opus Fast. Oh my goodness, it really goes quick.
Opus
And
4.6 is actually really good with UI. I like
Yep.
normally like I built all my UI by hand, and now I use Opus 4.6 to do the wireframes for me, so I can then like I'm not taking it one to one. Like I am absolutely allergic towards using AI generated interfaces because I can spot them, and I know other people who care about as much as I do about UI can spot them as well. But I can use them as good wireframes, and they work really well as wireframes.
Yep. And you make a really good point. Like, how do you articulate your taste? Becomes something that becomes more valuable now, particularly if you're like yourself, like someone who's strong on the front end. I'm probably more strong on the back end. I care a lot about data. Oh, wait, UI. I want it to be as easy, in fact, as inobtrusive as it can be. That's one of the reasons why I like having it sort of built into the chat. Right? Hey, now it's not my UI at all.
That's why you're so fascinated about MCPs.
Well, yeah, because if the best UI is no UI, then how can you make that more of this stuff go away? Because that will reduce friction.
That makes sense.
It also changes, but that creates other kinds of problems. Creates kind of the guardrail problems you're talking about in terms of the way it's going to look. It creates discoverability problems, like how does AI know what to use? Which has been a constant, and that discoverability thing. That's what like skills are all about. That's what the context overload problems are all about. And then you take that to a bigger scale. Like, hey, what tools are available out in the world? I don't know, right? And then that's how do you help the AIs find more agents and more tools that they can use to solve your problems.
Oh, I got good news from Xano. I just had issues like with Xano. This is not a paid advertisement, but I guess it's some sort of advertisement because they just gave me some stuff for free. I had issues with the Xano database being super slow. I just got an email from Lewis from Xano. He says, I hope you had a great start into your week. If it's only your issue, it might not make sense from a cost perspective to upgrade, something like this. I've gone ahead and increased the database memory allocation for the Despia instance. I hope this leads to some improvements. Please keep me updated. So I just got like free memory and free resources from Xano. Look at that.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see how that works. It
works fine. The only issue I have with it is fuzzy search. Because I'm doing fuzzy search on very big JSON objects. And when I use Xano's built-in search, it takes like 5 minutes for me to find the app I'm searching for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But when I use an index and do fuzzy search only on the name is instant, obviously. But sometimes I need to do fuzzy search on a bundle ID or like some random name set in some, like Xano is probably not the best data warehouse, but I do like the convenience it gives me.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about convenience. I mean, fuzzy search is just slow, and it allows it to. It's faster than just.
It doesn't help that it has to go through very big files and through lots of JSON, like 10,000 records in the database for the Despia app, so very big JSON objects, and Xano is struggling with fuzzy search on that.
Yes, and yeah, that's gonna be a little ugly. we start to learn like what these tools are good for. Like
But I do like it. I
that
like if they tell me you have to pay 5,000 to get good performance data warehousing on Xano, I don't mind paying for it. I like the convenience it gives me. I don't have to like go now to Google Cloud and like do all the crazy stuff with it and then bridge it back into it. Like I think provides is greater than the debt from it, and you know, like I don't mind paying a premium for that, and I think Xano knows that, and I think that's their business model. And then you can't get away, or you don't want to go away. I could go away, but I don't want to go away.
Well, that's a really interesting point. Like, what is the thing that makes you not want to go away? What is the what for you is the most valuable thing about Xano?
I can change the entire backend 3 a.m. in the morning without breaking big stuff, right? That's kind of like the big issue I have. Like if I have to write with code and all that kind of stuff, you do syntax errors, you forget a comma, and obviously there is AI, but I do like that I can just go into it. I can think about the logic I'm building and I can understand it, and I can directly, without having to talk to something and losing my thought, just do it, right? It's kind of like drawing. You don't think about what you draw, you just draw, right?
Got it. So really, it's the function stack that drives you back to it.
It's the function stack, yes.
Yeah.
And also the NPM.
Oh, being able to do when you say the NPM, what you mean is being able to have JavaScript get deployed in what they call their lambdas.
Yes, that's very convenient because you can import all that kind of stuff. You can't do heavy stuff like Puppeteer. I'm still waiting on your heavy Lambda, but did that thing ever ship? Or
oh, I dropped it because Google Cloud Run was doing such a good job with it.
We would still appreciate a nicer interface for it.
I hear what you're saying, but like that becomes the key is like, what are people willing to pay for, and the and like I think Xano's function stack is was a good technical insight, right? That a lot of what you build can be relatively straightforward. XanoScript, I think, was a misstep. But I think if what you're doing is building the way that you're building, then I can see how it creates a whole lot of value. The AI just keeps on falling down with it because it's trying to interpret, this weird DSL that Xano made that nobody else uses. It's just sort of very unclear why they went down that road. But but if you are building as low code the way that you are, it's non-parial. It's definitely the best way to be building, the back end. The question is that the way you want to build? And that becomes, I think, the nature of the market challenge that they deal with and that other low code players deal with, right? If they have built the best low code way of doing it, but wait, now people don't want to build using low code, they want the agent to do it for them. How do you then make that transition? And there was an opportunity, right, where there's lots of trust that you have today that you can then use to get them to, oh, you should now sit with the agent. But then if you don't do that job well, you lose that trust and they'll cross the street. And I think that becomes the challenge that, is the reason why a lot of people have churned from Xano, and a lot of people haven't churned from Xano because they have that love of working with the function stack that you just described. And then I look at like, okay, what's the other half of this, which is what are you trying to build? And and Xano, because of its instance model, I think has an opportunity to be retaining and building a lot of business that others would have a harder time getting into. I was like comparing it with like E2B or Fly.io sprites, which are very cool pieces of technology, but they can't be offering the kind of always on or the kind of back end that like Xano has built. And I think that'll be, a question of like whether they can be capitalizing opportunity.
What could Xano do with the always on? Now we're talking about unique apps. Like, how could Xano be an asset to someone trying to build an application that is unique, where if they would have all the always on features enabled that you would imagine? Because I assume Xano obviously has the function stack as an abstraction on top, so they can only expose the things that are visual so that you can do them like MCPs that have the capability to do it, but there was a time where they didn't support it. What would be the features that would need to add to make maximum use of their always on capabilities? And then what would be the apps that you could build that would make you stand out of the masses?
Well, I think this is where autonomy comes into play. Like are you going to build an app on Xano? No, Xano is the app. Here's your Xano instance. Here's your Xano instance. Here's your Xano instance. Right? Here's the robot that works for you, and being able to have that layer of communication. Like what are we really doing when we talk about OpenClaw? Right? Okay, well, we got a messaging surface to it. All right, so you have a messaging layer, a messaging app or something that goes on top that talks to your instance. Right? Now this is your box that's working for you, and it's able to do things for you. So being able to, you can start to imagine how you could express your intent, and then it goes and builds out function stacks that run as cron tasks, right? That are going to be, oh, this thing should run every minute. This should run every 5 minutes. You can have a little bit of a layer thing.
It would be kind of like being able to chat with Xano.
Well, chat with your Xano, your app. But I'm as a developer, but like just in terms of I want this to get done for me, and then code gets generated for you, code function stack gets generated for you, which is now all auditable because it's in the function stack, right? The visibility of it becomes like an advantage on the after the fact. Not to mention, like, instead of having it just show up inside my Xano, how about having it show up in, an MCP app, right? That's going to be sitting inside my chat.
That's what I just wanted to say. I'd say, like, you can probably like get this into ChatGPT or Claude and then talk with it and then have that insights provided back and get updates on stuff that's running.
See, now it's not using it to build software that's going to be an app that you're going to go serve to a bunch of people. It's just you talking to your assistant. Your assistant is Claude. Your assistant is Xano.
It's like FileMaker almost with AI.
Well, I mean, it would have like the database.
Yes. Like FileMaker is the old way of doing things, but it would be, yes, that makes sense. You use Xano's architecture and you use Xano's execution layer to generate code and have that code be used, and then also be able to recycle that code and adjust that code to then automate tasks. And you could technically even have an MCP like discover things itself and then try to build function stacks. Like technically you could just provide like API documentation to it. It's like looping through everything. It is discovering the APIs, and then it can build the endpoints and possibly even the interface to like have it fully autonomously tested, and through the testing provide the endpoint, set up the databases and all that kind of stuff. And then you probably want to have like multiple containerized instances for each of those tests.
Well, okay, you can start to come up with a bunch more things, and then but the other thing is that's not even building an app, right? I think that the model is not, oh, right, we need something to build software so I can serve up an app so I can help 10,000 customers do something. The software is just for you. It's you. The people are willing to pay, for a Mac Mini, right? So it can go host their assistant, as opposed to, and then whatever the other software will come along. Well, there'll be more turns of this wheel. But I think there's an idea of, look, we talk about like what's unique, right? And we started with what's unique from an interface point of view. I think we can come back to what's unique in terms of how it creates value. And the ability for it to be autonomous and always on, and like, hey, every 5 minutes, go check my email. Which is a very common thing that people are doing with OpenClaw now. That would be a straightforward thing for it to be able to do. Now, does anybody want to go, through all the work of setting all those things up manually? No. But if you can be showing it back in terms of oh, here's the control over it, and it can be done for you. Now, the value of the machine that you'll gladly pay a couple $100 a month for is that it's providing you with all of this, value as it is doing things for you. Code, rather than being the end, which is, I think, the way Xano would have been pitched, say, last year, code becomes the means to being able to do value that's just executing things for you. And that's where I see it being a whole lot more valuable, being valuable either at an individual level or at a business level, but being able to have these autonomous robots, because they've already thought this through from an infrastructure point of view. They have an auditability built in because of the function stack. I think the one miss is going to be the Xano script, because Xano script, I think, was designed so that people could code in it, which I think has been an ambition of theirs between the what they call their expressions language and then the more recently the ZenoScript. But if you can
Zeno
make
as
that
a
a little
programming language is not like I
no,
think
but
it's cool, but like it's like who besides an AI would use it? And AI is going to be it's going to shoot in the dark.
and AI doesn't want to use it. Well, that becomes the trick. It's a domain-specific language for which there's no market. And worse, it doesn't work that well, and everything that's wrong with it needs to be fixed from inside of Xano, which means they need to spend their resources maintaining it. Contrast that with what if they just had it be an SDK? What if they just had an API, and then you could have your TypeScript functions, you could have your Python functions, whatever, that your Claude knows how to write TypeScript, which can use to go express what it wants to have happen inside your agent. And now the way people build is through the way they want to be building today, and the way they can audit is just by being able to look inside to get the transparency to it and be able to, and it has the autonomy because of the structure of its of the infrastructure. There's a lot of value to be had in there, but they're going to do whatever they want to do. I do think there's a big market for that kind of always on, easily accessible, auditable. And if our friends in Xano don't do it, or frankly, even if they do it, somebody else is going to do it. But I think when we talk about like what's unique and what's valuable, I think that idea of always on, being able to do things for you and being able to communicate it with it using some sort of two-way messaging, I think that will be highly, highly valuable.
We got one from Johnny. Did you both try OpenClaw? What do you think? I didn't try it, but Ray, how about you?
I've only tried it a little. I've gotten to see how other people have done it with greater depth, and it's super cool. It's like it gives you a glimpse of the future. I think it's something that's worth doing and playing with and getting value. In fact, I would say this about all AI technologies right now. You play with it, you get value out of it today. It is not a thing to invest in, right? Because both it will get better without you, and other solutions will come around. But I think everyone should try open clawing a bit because it is what the future looks like, which is this idea of autonomy and always on and being able to get things done for you and having this two-way channel. So like being able to turn on the messaging through use WhatsApp or Telegram or Slack or whatever you prefer. Being able to have it create basically because under the covers it creates its own cron. And have it, be able to do things for you on the regular. That's where it gets super valuable. And then it has an idea of heartbeat management, which is also very important because it can run long running tasks and checks to make sure long running tasks didn't just hang on you. And that's kind of the third, I think, leg of the stool that is like super valuable about it. And then outside of that, it's like got a lot of good package management, sort of easy to set up, extend, whatever. But like those three things, I think, are the sources of value that one should pay attention to in terms of like what can be done and like what that glimpse of the future is.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm right now looking into running Fastlane spaceship in a somewhat secure environment, and I found the only way to do it secure is by being on the desktop, right? And many of those things like OpenClaw and all that kind of stuff, I think we will see more and more pieces of technology being moved from the cloud to the individual device that's running it. I just hope that we can run like more advanced stuff soon on mobile devices.
Okay. All right. I think that brings us in for the end of another good episode, man.
I can't wait to see all your clips. Our episodes are made to be clipped. They're not made to be watched in one, even though we do appreciate everybody watching it as one.
We definitely appreciate everybody who's watching. I appreciate the let Ray talk. And hello to friends Nick and Dominic. I really appreciate
Opus Clip is going to put this all great together. This is going to be like we're going to get like 100 short attention span videos out of this with lots of movements and all that.
That is what the Opus Clips are for. All right. Well, let's. I'll put those up. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, we got one. What was that? Is it about being totally unique or making something that exists but better? Oh, that's a good one, Ray. You want to end this one?
creativity is remixing, right? It's about taking the thing that is good today, taking maybe something that was good yesterday but doesn't exist today, and like bringing it back, or combining it with something that's totally new. I think that we should all give ourselves permission to say that, like, we're looking for what is that unique angle on it, without having to say it needs to be totally unique. I do get blown away by stuff that, like, oh man, I never would have thought of that. That's totally crazy. And then you discover this is like a 50-year-old idea. So, I'm not saying there's nothing new under the sun, but I would say we should all just give ourselves permission to remix, because that's going to be the way that I think we make a lot more progress. What do you think?
I completely agree with that. I also think that most of the things, when we have innovation happening in the market, like, there will always be the opportunity to take something that already exists, a concept that already exists, an idea that already exists, and to make it like adapting to the current times. Like, right now everybody's using AI. Now the next challenge will become, how do you add more visual control to building interfaces in AI for people who care about that? And then you can dig up the graves of all the no-code tools again.
It will all come back around, and to use one of my slogans, you'll build this again.
Yes. I am already at the 3.5 time of building something again. So
it was great doing this, Yassine. We'll do this again next week.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for everybody watching, and see you next week. Take care. Bye.